Hey everyone, we're back. And in this video, I wanted to cover a bit of an older faction that's been around since the Riverfolk expansion, but I still see a lot of questions about this faction because they are a little bit complex. But once we watch this video, I hope that everything will be cleared up and you won't have too many more questions about different rulings and things, more so on figuring out the strategies. So without further ado, we're going to talk about the Lizard Cult. The Lizard Cult are exactly what they sound like. We have these followers of a reptilian religion, and they are planting these gardens in service of a mysterious dragon god. What does this dragon god want? I have no idea. Nobody seems to know. Does it even exist? Only legends can tell. But the lizards themselves are usually pretty passive, and they prefer to just worship in peace. But if you wage war against them, don't be fooled. They can strike back with a vengeance. This is one of the factions that is very, very popular among fans. It's a lot of people's favorite factions. And their playstyle is very different from other factions, and we'll get into all the little steps. But first, let's talk about their components. They have 25 warriors, which is tied for the most along with the Marquise de Cat. However, their reach is very low. They're an insurgent faction because, like I said, they're a peaceful faction. They tend to not do that much moving and battling, although they can, and we'll talk about the ways that they do that after. 25 warriors and 15 buildings. Their buildings are called gardens, and they have 5 of each. So 5 mouse, 5 fox, and 5 rabbits. They will start the game completely on the track. So you have the mouse track, the rabbit track, and the fox track. I just wanted to point out that the lizards have been errated a little bit over the years. If you have a board that shows this additional card draw symbol that goes sort of diagonally up the line like that, you're playing with an outdated board, and you can find an errata sticker online on the Leader Games website, or you can order replacement boards. I think it costs $5 to update your boards, but this is a current printing where all of the additional card draws happen at the first step. So once I actually set up the game, all these gardens are going to be out here. Just wanted to point that out. The last little component is exclusive to the lizards, and that is the Outcast marker. We're going to talk about what the Outcast is, but it has 2 sides. So it has the red side that we call hated Outcast, and then normal, non-hated Outcast. And that's just going to start right here, but it will always go on one of the suits. So fox, rabbit, or mouse. And that's it for the component overview. Let's get right to setup. All right, so in this example, we're going to have our opponent be the Marquise de Cat. The Marquise de Cat has already set up. They've chosen this corner and then these 2 clearings for their starting spaces. If we were to do classic setup, then the birds, the Eerie Dynasties, would just choose the opposite corner, and then the lizards would get a choice of one of the unoccupied corners, so this one or this one. In games without the Eerie Dynasties, then the lizards would have been forced to choose the opposite corner of the keep. But that's classic setup. That's all in the past, because now true route from now on is going to be moving towards doing advanced setup. So instead, what we're going to do is have cats do their setup, advanced setup, and then we'll follow suit. So because it's advanced setup, they're still going to choose these 3 homeland clearings, which means that each homeland gets 2 kitties. Ooh. And because every clearing gets at least 1, or gets 1 kitty as well, then opposite corner would also get a kitty. If you want to learn more about advanced setup, I have another video on it on my channel, and you should check that out. But that confirms the cat's setup. Next, we will look at the lizard setup, which is choose a homeland clearing that is not adjacent to enemy homelands. So because these are the 3 Marquise de Cat homelands, I cannot choose this clearing because it's adjacent, this clearing because it's adjacent, this clearing, or this clearing. So my options for starting homeland for the lizards would be here, 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 or here. And we're just gonna set up right here. Right here. This will be our homeland. So we'll start, and the instructions are put 4 warriors and a matching garden in your homeland. Matching garden, so it's a mouse clearing, gets a mouse garden. Then we put 4 warriors in that starting spot. Next step is put 3 warriors in clearings adjacent to it as evenly as possible. So we take 3 warriors and we put them adjacent. So these are the 3 adjacent clearings to our starting homeland. So very easy, we just put 1 in each. Then the next step is put 2 warriors in your acolytes box. This would not be included in the standard setup. However, going into advanced setup, the lizards have been patched a little bit and given a buff. So we get 2 warriors in our acolytes box right here. And we're going to talk all about what this means and what you can do with these acolytes, but this is a very nice benefit for the lizards. Then you would just fill up the gardens, which I've already done. You have all your mouse, all your rabbit, and all of your foxes. And then you would set your outcast marker. I'm just going to put it on mouse. You'll understand the implications of this once we actually see it. But that confirms the setup for the lizard cult. Then you would just draft down your hands and then begin the game. Of course, because the lizards set up after the cats, they would take their turn first, but for the purposes of this demonstration, I'm going to have the Marquise de Cat take their turn first. The Marquise de Cat player is, opposed to all of our other demonstrations I've done, they're actually going to make a pretty good move. So what they're going to do is they're going to first overwork the sawmill. So they spend a fox card. They get that one first for their birdsong. Then they get another wood for overwork, and then they build twice. So good moves by the cats. They're going to put a sawmill here for 1 wood, scoring a point. And then they're going to build a recruiter, spending another wood for another point. And where's that recruiter going to go? It's going to go up here. Why not? And that would be the conclusion of the Marquise de Cat's turn. But they've discarded a fox card. When the lizard cult is in play, any card that's discarded first has to go to the lost souls. This little square, this rectangle on the lizard cult's board. Think of this as a limbo that happens before any card is discarded. So just always remember and keep this in mind that discarded cards go right here on the lost souls. And then the Marquise de Cat would draw a card, and that would conclude their turn. So next, let's start the lizard cult's turn. First step is adjust outcast. So you take all of your lost soul cards that are in here, and you count out how many, or not how many cards, but you open up all the cards and you would see how many of each suit is represented, ignoring bird. Because there's only 1 card and it's fox, that's the majority suit. It shifts the outcast over to fox, and then it goes into the discard pile proper. So there you go. So that overwork action that the cats took allowed them to shift the lizard's outcast over to fox. Okay? So that's the first step of Birdsong, and then second was discard the lost souls, which is what we did. We just threw them all over there. Then we can perform Conspiracies. Conspiracies are the really cool actions that the lizard cult gets to do in their Birdsong. So the first one is I can do a crusade, and this is where the acolytes come into play. The text says, spend 2 acolytes to battle in any outcast clearing, or may move from any outcast clearing, and then may battle in the destination clearing. This is literally the only way that the lizard cult is able to move or battle, and yes, it costs them acolytes to do this action. So what I could do is I could spend both of them, they would go to the supply, and then I could move a lizard from a fox clearing, because it has to be related to the outcast. The outcast is currently fox, so I could spend these 2 and move this lizard. But of course, I don't rule this clearing because there's 1 cat and 1 lizard, so I could only move him back towards this clearing, or I could move this lizard, also in a fox clearing, into here. And then once I move, I can then battle the cat in the destination. The other option is to skip the move and just battle straight away where the cat is. So I could just do a battle against the cats in either one of these, because these are the only 2 Outcast clearings where I actually have warriors. But we're not going to do a crusade. Let's keep these acolytes. Let's look at the next conspiracy action you can do. Spend 2 acolytes to remove an enemy warrior in an outcast clearing and place a warrior there. That's really cool. So you can actually convert an enemy warrior to your religion. So maybe you've got pamphlets or a very convincing piece of literature of some sort, and he goes, psst, 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 hey, you know, the dragon god loves you and trusts you, blah, blah, blah. So he can actually spend these 2 acolytes to go to the supply, and then remove this cat, and then you get to place a warrior in its place. So thematically, this cat is now a follower of the lizard cult, which is pretty cool. And the last action is called Sanctify. This one is spend 3 acolytes to remove an enemy building in an outcast clearing and place a garden there. You heard that right. I could literally remove an enemy building without touching or battling the warriors at all and just place down a matching garden so that now I have a building out into that spot. I cannot do that right now because I don't have any acolytes to spend, and that example was in Mouse, and it's not currently Mouse Outcast, it's Fox Outcast, and the only Fox building right now that's an enemy piece that I could sanctify is up here in the keep. This is very important about the conspiracies. Both for convert and sanctify, you must be able to complete the entire conspiracy in order to take that action. So I cannot sanctify a building in the keep because sanctifying this would remove the sawmill, and then it would force me to then place a fox garden here. But because the keep is there, I cannot place any of my pieces in the keep. So because I wouldn't be able to complete that action, I cannot sanctify. I also cannot convert a warrior in the keep clearing because that would require me placing a warrior of mine into the keep, which is illegal. So I cannot actually do that. I should say also that I did not actually have to have this warrior here in order to convert the cat to my religion. I could have just done that convert action over here to this cat. It has nothing to do with placement. The lizards are one of the factions that can actually end up scattering warriors all over the map, regardless of where they started. So they're very cool for that reason as well. But those are the conspiracies. I spent 2 acolytes to convert a cat to the lizard cult. And that is it. I have finished my conspiracies. I have no more acolytes. So I move on to daylight. Daylight is actually sort of the hand management aspect of the lizard cult. So the lizards use their hand cards very differently from other factions. They have a mechanic called reveal. So let's look at these actions. Reveal any number of cards from your hand and perform 1 ritual for each. So the actions are build. I can place a matching garden in any clearing that I rule, and it would have to be a matching card. So let's say that I wanted to reveal this fox card. I could then place a fox garden in this clearing because I rule, okay? We're actually going to do that as well with this mouse card. So I'm going to reveal a mouse card and then place a mouse garden right here in our clearing. Of course, we rule both of those, so those were both legal actions. Keep in mind, when you reveal a card, you're literally revealing it to the whole table, so they have free range to be able to look at the cards you're revealing. And fun fact, cards that you reveal are no longer part of your hand. That's going to be important when we are interacting with some of the different cards and factions. We'll keep that in mind for later, but this is currently the only card in my hand. The next action is recruit. Place a warrior in a matching clearing. So I can just reveal, sorry, that was a gecko. It must be a member of the lizard cult. So I can reveal this rabbit card to recruit 1 warrior in any rabbit clearing. I could put it here, I could put it here, but I'm going to put it right here. Okay? So we're going to put it up in that top corner and you'll understand why. The last action is score. And there's one down here that's sacrifice, but we're going to ignore those for the first turn. I'm just going to build twice with these two and recruit with this one. Okay? And I'm out of hand cards, so that would end my daylight. Then we move on to evening. Return revealed cards to hand. So all the cards that I've revealed, I get to take them and take them right back into my hand. Awesome. And then I can craft. Second step is craft, using Garden's matching Outcast suit. This is probably one of the biggest mistakes I see people making with regards to the lizard cult, is they think that they can just craft right away. So, oh, look, I have this card, one mouse, I can craft this because I have mouse gardens. No, 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 no. The Outcast is fox. So the only card I would be able to craft is this card because it has two fox symbols. But I only have one fox garden, so sad day, I can't craft anything on this turn. The best advice I can give to remember this rule is in the Birdsong step, when you would adjust the Outcast, at this point, before you take any other actions, just look at your hand and based on the Outcast, try to decide if there's a card in your hand that you'd like to craft. This will help you remember, okay, well, because it's Fox Outcast, I can't craft this card, so I just have to give up on that dream. So that is going to help you to remember that you later on in the turn won't be able to say, oh, and I craft this card, because it doesn't match the Outcast. Very important. Try not to mess that up. The last step is you draw one card, +1 for every revealed symbol, just like this. So they're all right here on this second garden of each suit. So this is the importance of having 2 gardens of a given suit, because one of this fox that I have gives me no card draw bonus, but 2 mouse allows me to draw 2 cards. So we're going to go ahead and draw, ooh, a bird card. Good for our example. And then another mouse card. Sweet. Okay. And then that would conclude the lizard cult's turn. Of course, discard down to 5, but I have 5 cards, so that's all good. Next is going to be the Marquise's next turn. So they generate 2 wood. 1, 2. Then they're going to build another recruiter right here for 2 points. 1, 2. Notice that's very common for the lizards to still be at 0 points going into their first and second turn. So that's just part of your life as the lizard cult. The cats are going to take a march action. So they're going to go 1 and 2. And then the Marquise are going to battle this lizard right here. Okay? Do you have an ambush? Ah, no! 2-0. So what happens is when a lizard is attacked, they have this ability called revenge. Your removed defending warriors become acolytes. So this lizard was in the defense of a battle, and the cats removed it. Therefore, it doesn't go back to the supply, it goes to the acolytes. And then, of course, you can use these acolytes later to perform your conspiracies. So your opponents are a little bit disincentivized to attack you for this reason. Okay? So we've now got an acolyte going into our next turn, and that's it for the cat's turn. Let's move on to the lizard cult's second turn. Step 1, adjust the Outcast. No cards were discarded on this turn, meaning there's no new majority. So what we do in this case is if ever there's a tie, then the Outcast stays the same. And that's true even if there are 2 mouse and 2 rabbits. Because 2 rabbits, 2 mouse, they're a tie, it would stay fox, even if there's no foxes in the Lost Souls. So this allows the Outcast to kind of hover around the same suit turn after turn, because it's actually quite hard to get a new majority that's not already the Outcast. But because there are no cards at all, it just flips over to the hated side. Anytime an Outcast is the same suit 2 turns in a row, it flips over to hated. And here it will remain until there's a new majority that's not fox. So if there's ever more mouse cards, it would flip back to its normal side and move to mouse. But for now, it's going to be Fox hated. When Outcast is hated, you can now perform conspiracies in that clearing for 1 fewer acolyte. So Crusade, which normally costs 2, now costs only 1. Same thing for Convert. Normally you'd have to give 2, which is what we did on our last turn, 2 acolytes. Now we can spend just this 1 acolyte, and that superpower, Sanctify, now costs only 2 acolytes. Very cool. What are we gonna do? Let's do a Crusade, just to show the action. So I'm gonna spend this 1 acolyte, and now I must do the conspiracy from the origin of a Fox clearing. So I only have warriors in this 1 Fox clearing. So because I'm doing Crusade, I can either battle in this clearing, there's no opponent, or I can move and then battle in the destination clearing. So I could of course move 2 if I wanted to, but I'm only gonna move 1. Let's move right here, and we're going to battle this cat. So now we're gonna battle the cat. Let's just make it 1-1. So the roll is a 1-1, which means that both the cat and the lizard are removed. Importantly, this doesn't activate revenge because it's only when the lizards are defending in battle. If you're the attacker, your killed warriors do not become acolytes, so sad day, he now goes back to the supply. Okay? Then we're finished with our conspiracies because the acolytes box is once again empty. We move on to daylight. And now we've got a full hand of cards. Excellent. So what we're going to do is first, another gecko. What we're going to do is we're going to reveal this mouse card to recruit a warrior. And we're going to put it, why not, right here on our starting clearing. That way we can extra defend these gardens, and we'll explain why that's important. Then the next step is we're going to look at that third action in daylight, which is score. Discard this card to score victory points equal to the rightmost empty space on the matching garden track. So because it's a mouse card, I look at the mouse garden track. Had I only 1 garden out, I would only score 0 points. But because I have 2 gardens out, I score 2 victory points for discarding this mouse card. So we're going to discard it. Of course, it goes to the Lost Souls. And I get 2 victory points. The more gardens you have, the more valuable that score action is. However, the reason that I recruited there is that I can't score more than once of the same suit per turn. I couldn't say, okay, I have 3 mouse cards. I'm going to discard each of them to get 2 points for each card. No. You can only score once per turn per suit. So that one is just going to have to be a recruit. Then I have another Fox card, it's the same one. I'm going to reveal it to build. And I can build right here in this southernmost clearing because now I would be able to get some victory points for scoring with foxes, and it opens up another card draw. So it's really nice to have 2 suits that give you extra card draw. And that's why I want them in the same clearing. You'll understand why on the cat's next turn, why you want them clustered in the same clearing so that you can guard them with a bunch of lizards. The next one is a rabbit. I can't score with rabbit. Technically, actually I should say this now. Technically, you can score with rabbit. You would just get 0 points because I don't have 2 rabbit gardens out. I could score it if I wanted to somehow wait the Outcast and then score 0 points, but that's a little bit dinky, so we're not going to do that. We're just going to reveal it, and then we're going to place a warrior up here in this northern clearing. And then we have a bird card. Is this good? Can I just choose any of these rituals? No, because the lizards have a trait up here that says, hatred of birds. We hate birds. Bird cards are not wild for your rituals. So you cannot recruit, nor build, nor score with a bird card. And that's what they're describing right here in this image, in this little graphic here. The only thing you can do with a bird card, if you reveal it, is you can sacrifice. So we're going to reveal that bird, and what sacrifice is place 1 warrior in your acolyte's box. So you take 1 warrior from your supply, and put it into the Acolytes box. If you have an older printing of the Lizard Cult's board, it might say you take a warrior from the map and put it in the Acolytes. That is outdated. It now comes from the supply. It used to be terrible. Now it's like an okay action. So that's it. We've revealed everything from our hand. Now we return the revealed cards to hand. 1, 2, 3, 4. And we can now craft. The Outcast is Fox. Now we have 2 Fox Gardens. So hooray, we can actually craft this card. So we're just gonna craft that. Wait a second. No, that's not what I wanted. I want to craft this sword. So at least this bird card is good for something. I can craft it and get the sword because these 2 foxes are right here on the board and it matches the Outcast. So we're of course discarding it into the Lost Souls. We take the sword and we score 2 points. 1, 2. Okay, we're done with crafting. Next step is draw 1 card plus 1 for each revealed draw bonus. So we're now drawing 1, 2, 3. 3 cards. And look at this gorgeous hand. The Lizards are one of the most card-rich faction, and that's really important because you can often have too many cards at the end of your turn and you'd be forced to discard cards. And that's cool because that gives you a lot of control over the Lost Souls. So let's say that I really want the Lost Souls to shift over to Mouse so I can craft this card. What can I do? I already have a Mouse card in here, so without anything else happening, it will shift to Mouse. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I have to discard 1 card. If I discard a Fox card, it will be tied, which will keep it on Fox. If I discard a Rabbit card, again, it'll be tied with our 1 Mouse, and it'll again stay Fox. The only way for me to try to guarantee that it's Mouse while not discarding this one is by discarding this bird card. So that's what we're gonna do. Gonna discard this bird card, so now we have 5 cards, and that ends our evening. Then the cats are gonna take their next turn. So they generate their wood, 1, 2, 1, 2. Then they're going to recruit. Did I forget to recruit up there? I might have. 1, 2, and 3. And now the cats are going to get a little bit aggressive. They're going to take a march action. So we're going to go 1, 2, and they're going to battle in this clearing. They're going to battle the lizards. Of course, we do have a fox ambush, but let's just, for the sake of this example, pretend that we don't. Do you have an ambush? No. So we're gonna roll, and I wanna stack the dice just so that it's a 3-0. This is terrible because now the cats deal 3 hits towards the lizards. The lizards do deal 1 hit, so we would remove 1 cat, and then the cats would have the opportunity to discard a card, and that could throw off our attempt. They can discard a card to use field hospitals, and that might ruin our chances of getting a mouse outcast, but that's a strategic decision on the cats. However, the 3 hits are now dealt on the lizards. The lizard is killed. He goes to the acolytes at the very least, but then it would remove these 2 gardens. This is really, really bad for the lizards because every time you lose a single garden, or any number of gardens, you lose a card, a random card from your hand per garden that you've just lost. So they go back to the board, the cats score 2 points, and then you have to randomly, oh boy, oh no, oh geez, discard 2 cards from your hand. 1, 2. Oh, those both get discarded. You might be thinking, okay, that's not such a big deal. For most factions, losing 2 or 1 hand card is kind of bad, but for the lizards, it is a catastrophe because every card in their hand equates to an action. So now I'll only have 3 cards in hand going into the next turn. Ooh, the cats really did damage to the lizards on that go, but that's what it is. So now the cats end their turn, draw their card, and then we go back to our Birdsong. Again, we would adjust the outcast. 2 foxes is clearly the majority. again, we ignore birds for this purpose. We've got 1 mouse, 2 foxes. So again, it remains fox. Discard these, and it stays over there on fox. Then perform conspiracies. At least it's hated, so what we can do is we can spend a warrior to convert this cat and place a warrior right in that clearing, and we can spend the next one and do that again. It's nice to have Outcast remain the same turn after turn because you can reliably do hated conspiracies in that clearing, and that's really cost-effective use of your acolytes. So now I've regained rule of that clearing. I've learned my lesson, though. I don't want to be having gardens with just 2 warriors. It's just too easy for an enemy to break through and cause this, what they call fear of the faithful. That's the mechanism by which you lose cards. And then we move on to daylight. So now I really wanted to craft this card, but we're just gonna have to spend it to score 2 points because of the mouse. 1, 2. Then we've got a fox card. We're gonna reveal it in order to put another warrior there. And then we've got bunny. We're gonna reveal that in order to put 1 garden up here. So I hope I've illustrated the importance of why you want these specific clearings of 2 building slots. Because if I had put my bunny garden down here in this corner, or in this corner where I actually started with a warrior, I could only get 1 bunny garden in this spot. And I would have to seek out a whole other clearing and then defend it really well in order to get the second rabbit garden, because only at 2 gardens does it actually become useful for anything other than crafting. Of course, I could maybe craft with this, but I can't score with rabbit until there are 2 rabbit gardens on the map. So that's my whole turn. It was kind of thrown off by the cats attacking me there, but that's everything. So we would return the cards to the hand. Can I craft anything? No, it's still fox. So that's that. I would draw 2 cards. So that was a disastrous turn. So these are some of the misplays that I see happening with the lizard players online, is that they try to put out a bunch of gardens, but not defending them well enough. So this is what I would consider very well defended. The cats can come in and try to break down this clearing, but either that would waste a whole bunch of their actions, but also, say you take out all the lizards, okay, they all become acolytes. Notably, they would not become acolytes in the event of a favor card, or if the corvids bomb the clearing, or if there's a Woodland Alliance revolt that removes all the pieces. You only gain acolytes when they're removed in battle as defender. So be very careful of that. Another reason that enemies might want to remove your gardens, apart from scoring points and forcing you to discard cards, is that your gardens are holy sites for the lizard cult. Whenever there's a garden in a clearing, or more than just 1, it attracts followers of the religion from all over the woodland. So there are pilgrims in the clearing. Because there are pilgrims, you rule any clearings where you have any gardens. So even if I had 1 garden, let's say that I had a blank garden down here in this clearing, I have 1 rabbit garden, even if the cats bring in just a massive, absurd number of warriors, they do not rule this clearing because the gardens always override anyone else's ability to rule a clearing. So they would not be able to move from here to here because the lizards rule both of these clearings. So just know that gardens can really help to gridlock the map for the other factions via rule. This doesn't stop the Vagabond or the Corvids, but most factions do have to rely on rule in order to move around. I want to show a couple of interesting tips with the lizard cult as well. So let's say that I had managed to craft this League of Adventurous Mice card. What it says is, once in daylight, may exhaust an item in your crafted items box, like the sword, to take a move or initiate a battle. If, for example, I wanted to attack a sympathy token because I'm really scared of a sympathy token in this clearing, I could exhaust a sword and then attack the token. The problem is you would cause outrage, and then you'd have to give up a mouse card from your hand and give it to the Woodland Alliance. But the wording on this card is that it happens anytime in your daylight. So a really cool trick, if you happen to get this card, is to do all of your daylight actions, reveal all of your cards, and then take the action with League of Adventurous Mice, because cards in your revealed cards area are not part of your hand. So you would have an empty hand technically, and you wouldn't have to fork over one of your own cards to the Woodland Alliance. So very clever use of the timing. And then you would return all the cards at the start of evening right back to your hand. So that's a cool little tip there. A very important thing to know when you're playing the Lizard Cult is their use of dominance cards, and it's not what you think. Normally, the way a dominance card would work is that I could spend a mouse card in order to claim a dominance card, and this has to be in daylight, and then you would activate it in order to make an attempt for a dominance victory. That's the normal way that we've been using dominance cards. However, here's a very interesting sort of quirk of the rules that makes dominance cards extremely useful for the Lizard Cult. Let's say that I really want to score in mouse this turn. I don't have any mouse cards in my hand, and remember, bird cards, we hate birds. They're not wild for the rituals. So I can only use a bird as a sacrifice, reveal it to put a warrior in the acolytes, but that's not as good as getting 2 victory points, so what can I do? Well, remember, birds might not be wild for your rituals, but they are still bird cards, and they're still wild for all other purposes, including claiming a dominance card. So we could just discard this bird card, of course it goes to the Lost Souls, to take a suited dominance. And now we have a mouse card in our hand that we can immediately spend, boom, for 2 victory points, bam. And that is called the dominance swap trick. It's an extremely important thing to know. I'm not sure if Leader Games anticipated that this is how dominance cards were going to be used for the Lizard Cult, but now that it's been discovered, it is an integral part of playing the Lizards, and it helps you to mitigate a little bit of the random luck of what cards you draw if the dominance cards get discarded. So you can't do it right from the get-go of the game because they need to actually arrive in people's hands and then get discarded and make their way to the dominance card available section of the map or the board. But once they're out, it's really helpful for the Lizard Cult to be able to do this dominance swap trick. I want to talk about a couple of different card effects and how they synergize with the Lizard Cult. So 2 cards that I want to draw some special attention to are False Orders and Saboteurs. Both of these are one-time use effects, and the key is that when you craft them on a following turn, you could discard them, and of course, when you discard things, they go into the Lost Souls. But the timing is what's really interesting about these, and that's that you can use them in Birdsong. For False Orders, you can actually use it at any time in Birdsong. Saboteurs must be at the start of Birdsong. However, if you want, you could actually activate either one of them and then discard them before the step in Birdsong where you would have to adjust the Outcast. And this is really cool because that allows you to have a little bit more pull over the direction of the Outcast suit before you actually go and tally up the cards. So if you see I have 1 rabbit already, if I have False Orders crafted, and I wanted Mouse to remain the Outcast, I could use False Orders, move the enemy warriors, resolve the effect, and then that's when I would go and look inside. Because there's a tie between rabbits and foxes, the Outcast doesn't move and it stays the same. So Mouse, 2 turns in a row, so it becomes hated, and then I would discard the rest of it. The same goes for Saboteurs. You might be thinking, wait a second, Saboteurs is a bird card. So how does that affect the Lost Souls? Well, of course, whenever you're using Saboteurs, you discard it to then remove an opponent's crafted improvement. And if that card is suited, well, then now you're adding indirectly 1 other suited card into the Lost Souls. Thank you, Garrick, for that tip. So very cool. These are 2 cards that allow you to have a little bit extra influence over the Lost Souls because of their timing window of when you discard them. A card that I see have a lot of questions regarding the lizards is with Coffin Makers. So how does this work with our Revenge ability? If you don't know, Coffin Makers is a card where once you craft it, any warrior that would go back to its supply, whether it were killed in battle or somehow you spent it and it needed to go to its supply, it instead goes to the coffin. So if the Woodland Alliance player wants to organize where they remove a warrior, it goes back to the supply. But if someone has Coffin Makers, that removed warrior goes onto the coffin card. Same thing if the Corvids want to plot, or if someone does a battle and 2 of the warriors are lost. So the Riverfolk did some casualties and then they hit one Woodland Alliance warrior or something. And then at the start of the player's turn who crafted it, you just count up every 5 warriors, gives you 1 victory point. So it's a very, very nice card. But how does it work when it comes to Revenge? Does it go to the Acolytes or does it go to Coffin Makers? The key wording here is whenever any warriors would go back to the supply. So the way it works with Revenge is whenever somebody attacks the lizard warriors and they're defeated in battle as the defender, they don't go to the supply at that moment. They go first to the Acolytes box, and then once you spend them as Acolytes, then they go back to the supply. So how it would work is they first go to the Acolytes box if Revenge is being activated, and then as you spend them, then they go to the coffin. And then when that player's turn comes around again, remember it's at the start of Birdsong, the coffin empties, then they go back to your lizard supply. So first Acolytes, then Coffin Makers, then finally back to your supply where you could re-recruit it or something. Coffin Makers, that's how that works. And Tunnels is the last one that can be a little bit confusing. The way Tunnels works is any clearing that has your crafting pieces in it would be considered adjacent. So if you have 2 crafting pieces on opposite sides of the map, then you could move your warriors from one to the other. I know that the lizards tend not to move around that much, but it could be useful. However, not all of your gardens are crafting pieces. Because of the way crafting works, where it's always tied to the Outcast suit, in this case mouse, only clearings with mouse gardens are considered adjacent as long as mouse is the Outcast. If it ever moves, then it would go to all of your clearings with fox gardens. So it's not as useful as you think. It's not all gardens, like you couldn't move warriors from one mouse clearing to a fox clearing because they wouldn't be considered adjacent for tunnels. So it's not really a good craft for the lizard cult, but that's how it works. The last thing I want to talk about is a card like Tax Collector. This is from the base deck. How does Tax Collector work with the lizard cult? That's a trick question. It doesn't, because if you look at the cost, it's 1 of each suit, 1 rabbit, fox, 1 mouse. And we can only ever craft with 1 suit at a time. So the lizard cult can never craft Tax Collector. So an easy way to remember that is I guess their religion is tax exempt. So Tax Collector cannot be used with the lizard cult, and it's a shame because that would be a great card for them, but it is what it is. And that's it. That is everything that you need to know in order to play the lizard cult. They are a tricky faction to master, but once you start being able to effectively build up your forces, you can score like mad and really present some challenges for your opponents by setting up your gardens and ruling them so well that your opponents won't be able to get through to the rest of the map. So thank you guys so much, and I'll catch you next time.